Forever, I wanna wake up to you. Brushing you off to make up with you. Do all the moves to lay out with you. To lay out with you. Forever, I wanna wake up to you. Brushing you off to make up with you. Do all the moves to lay out with you. Crazy, sexy, yeah, cool. Hey, what all you been through? All clean, all mean, tell me what is the truth. Cool, can me and you be two, then we be one. Never keep the score, almost being done. Cause God's still working and he ain't done. Wouldn't try to search cause there ain't another one.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, hello, hello.
I am Ambrosia Brittany.
And I am Philip.Joe.
And this is
Britney+Joe.
Yes, thank you for joining us for our episode.
Yeah, episode 8, we in there. So our topic today is Black therapy.
Yes.
And we have some wonderful guests with us. You guys already, and this is part 2, right? You guys already saw our first episode that we did about Black therapy, and now we have some guests here with us to be able to go just a little bit deeper on the topic.
Yeah,
and so
expand.
And so instead of us doing it, we're gonna let them introduce themselves and also tell you a little bit about themselves before we kind of like just dive in, man. So like we just thank y'all for y'all time today, man. And so like we'll let you guys introduce yourselves.
Yes, Faye, you can go first.
Okay, my name is Faye Anna, and I am a licensed clinical social worker and clinical supervisor in the Portland metro area. I have a private practice called Anchor Within Counseling. My practice focuses on and prioritizes multicultural and multiracial treatment. And so we really try and prioritize getting those folks in and making sure that we're available for those folks. We are all very busy right now, as Deshaun knows. So sometimes, we don't have space, but I will pass it.
Thank you, Fiona. So my name is Deshaun Williams, and I'm also a licensed clinical social worker. I'm born and raised here in Portland, Oregon. Went to Portland State University, both for my undergraduate and graduate degree. And got my undergraduate in criminal justice and graduate degree in social work. And went on and got my license to be a clinical social worker many years later, but I did it. I now run a practice after working for many various agencies, but I now have a private practice called Raising an Alternative Perspective Counseling and Consulting. Long name, but in short, it's RAP Counseling and Consulting. And it's a group practice where, as Fiona said, we prioritize working with BIPOC community, that's Black, Indigenous, people of color. And we work with this particular community, recognizing the need for it, as you hear a little bit more us talking about that for this particular topic today. But yeah, that's pretty much a little bit about my background.
Man,
Thank you.
Yeah.
so awesome, man. Like, so we just, you guys are really gems for the community, man. So we just really just appreciate you guys' time today, man, and just being able to rock with us. I know,
Your perspective, experience, and expertise is needed.
Yes, we didn't cheat y'all. Y'all see that we got some golden people right here, man. You know what I'm saying? So we're excited about that. Qualified, man.
No pressure.
So
I was just thinking okay,
hey,
we are just two people. My goodness.
Okay, so to kick off our conversation today, like some of the things that we talked about before was about some of the barriers in the Black community when it came down to Black therapy and therapy in the Black community.
And the stereotypes.
And things of that nature. And so just want to shoot it to you guys, like as far as like from your perspectives, like what are some of the biggest obstacles you see to Black people even participating in therapy? What are some of those obstacles from you guys' lens?
You want me to start again? Okay.
I can start.
Okay, you start.
Well, we'll go back and forth.
Yes, let's do that.
So one of the things that I have seen in terms of an obstacle is lack of providers of care that match the community.
Yep.
So I think that's one of the biggest obstacles in seeing people being able to access services. And, it's people want to work with someone that looks like them,
Yeah.
and they want
Yeah.
to be with someone that they feel like can relate to them. And when you don't have that, when you don't have enough providers in the community that do that, people don't want to go talk to someone. So we oftentimes will substitute that with talking with our pastors or talking with other leaders or religious leaders in the community, which is great because I think that we all provide a certain amount of support, and we go by that whole proverb. It takes a whole village to raise a child.
Yeah.
So, but sometimes you do need to take it a little bit further and seek out professional help, and oftentimes it just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
think
one
I
of the
see that
obstacles.
too, where it's like, oh man, I have this great pastor, or I have this elder at my church, or my favorite teacher, or something, and they go to them for like to kind of carry the burden of their issues,
yeah.
and then it's like, okay, well, that's my therapy. That going to this Facebook group, going to this men's group, or going to that's my therapy, and then maybe, oh, I don't know how to. Who do I go to? Where do I go? And then if they do a little bit of research and call, oh, everybody's full, or nobody's available, or I can't find somebody who has the same background as me. Yeah, I think that's some obstacles as well.
Yeah, and I think we talked about that a little bit in the last one too. I think we talked about, we brought up the pastoral type of thing where like, I know we're going to get to it later on, so I don't want to jump ahead too much, but that's a really good point that you said, was like, people need to see people who look like them. And when they don't see people who look like them, they kind of grasp a hold on to the next closest, thing in their community, and it's usually from like the religious or the church community, you know what I'm saying? And so I do see it as being like an obstacle. So what do you think, Faye?
Well, I think along that lines is we have to recognize that the Black community is relational first, and so we go to the people that we have relationships with.
Yeah.
Wow.
And if we feel like we cannot have a relationship with you, or that my relationship with you is dangerous, or I'm not able to trust it for whatever reason, we are less likely to engage in treatment. And so I think that we have to recognize that there is this factor of having to be relatable.
Yep.
And if we are not relatable, people are not going to, especially Black folks, are not going to come to treatment. And so it comes down to the relationship,
Yeah.
and so there are, like you said, not a lot of providers that are reflective of that relationship. And, faith is definitely another factor that we see as well. I need someone that I feel like I can trust. Yeah, and I would say another thing is the way that therapy has historically looked in the Black community.
Okay. Tell us more about that.
I think it's like this idea that, first of all, we don't share or tell anybody our business,
That's
so why
right.
would you go and talk
Right.
about
Okay.
what's going on here? Like,
Right.
what happens in this house
Stays.
stays in this house,
Wow.
Yep.
and we don't share that outside of this house. And so there's kind of that dynamic. And then there's also the dynamic of like what strength represents. If I'm, living under the stereotypical strong Black woman, that means I don't need help or assistance, and I need to do it by myself. And so the damage that is, and then this idea of, the strong Black man, like I have to be hard all the time. I can only show anger. That's the only acceptable emotion in the Black community. And then it is fostered even as we raise up our boys. It is fostered by mothers and aunties and grandmothers and those types of things that, boys' outlandish behavior is wildly accepted. And then like girls, you just need to figure it out on your own and kind of like, stay in line and do these things. And so you don't really, whether you're a girl or a boy, you don't really have that chance or opportunity to really reflect on like, why is my behavior this way? Why do I feel this way?
So as far as like what you were talking about, as far as like the difference between like, you said how, so it's not just outside factors, right? You what you spoke to is more so like inside of our own community. Like there are these outside factors, right? But what you spoke about is some inside stuff as far as like inside of our community. And so like some of the stereotypes and some of the things that we have done and participated in and contributed to, you know what I'm saying? And so like if you can tell us just a little bit more, either one of you guys, like as far as like that, like you said, like boys' outlandish behavior, like it's just like, oh yeah, that's cool because he's just a boy, so he can just go ahead and do that, and like our girls, they can just go ahead and just like figure it out. And do you feel like some of that perspective also leads to how we've had this this misnomer of just like the strong black woman, right? You know, because we've always talked about the strong black woman, and that was one of our questions for later on. But since you broached it, we're just gonna go ahead and go into it. Like, you know, there's some positives and negative connotations with that, right? And so, like, what do you see those things are? I know that was loaded.
I know,
but you know what? I just threw it up there like a smorgasbord, just like I'm gonna pick that one. I'm gonna pick that one. You just pick whatever hits you.
I think there's a lot. You know, I think I can talk a little bit about the history, but maybe you can talk more about like how you see the strong black woman play out now. Yeah.
You want to start
Okay. So I think that the history is rooted in, especially this country, of the United States slave trade, and us having a community where at any moment, you know, our families could be ripped apart. And oftentimes it was the black women who were left there to kind of care for this kind of multi-diverse generational like groups of children and families and those types of things. And the things that they saw caused them to say, okay, I know that there's a higher likelihood that this daughter will stay here with us, but there's a higher likelihood that this male will be sold off because of what he can do. You know, and so there was this, you know, pattern or idea of, you know, like, okay, I'm not gonna try and raise him essentially too much or make him too smart or make him too strong, you know, because then that shows the slave owner or the massa that, you know, he's ready to go. And so we're just gonna like, you know, let that behavior go, like, no, he's like not too smart. He's so hard to deal with, you know. He has like these issues, you know, and try to downplay like what his potential is. Yes, as a way of protection, because if you do grow in the way that the daughter can grow, then you'll be taken away from being out of kind of like the control of this unit. And then that followed through the Jim Crow era, and you know, then it was about like protecting like his safety and well-being in another way, like politically and socially, you know, because if he's out in the world, you know, like by himself, he can be killed. So I need him to, you know, be here with us and kind of take care of the family unit in that kind of a way. And so it kind of, you know, transitioned in these different ways. Whereas for black women, what we see is like you need to learn these tools and skills so that you can be ready and able to raise and rear the next generation. You know, and because we know that from how we have been treated as a group of slaves, and you know, all of us being a part of the African diaspora, we know that you are going to be, as a woman, the one that is most often here, because there has been an attack on our males, you know, from the inset of the slave system. And so I think that is a lot of what is around the history and what it's rooted in. And so I think, you know, maybe we can talk about what it looks like today.
Well, and to your point, I think that even carried on through just the whole war on drugs era.
Oh,
you know,
absolutely.
Where you know you're finding a lot of our black men were put in prison, you know, at alarming rates, which removed the black man from, or black young man or young boy out of the house, which left the mother there to have to raise the children. And so black women are strong because they have to be strong. And so they were left no other choice. And so, which I'm deeply appreciative of, that black women are strong in those ways, but I don't necessarily think that that's what black women want. You know, I think that was a default of what was dealt to them, and to keep the community going, to keep us flowing, black women had to step up. And so, I think in these days, I think it's great to appreciate our black women for what they bring. And but I also know that they don't always want to be strong, and they don't always want to be identified as strong, because that means they're looked over. That means that
Yep.
if they do have needs, it's not taken seriously. Even just down to medical, like not even being treated the same ways in the medical field, because you're looked at as somebody that can endure pain more than any other race, which is absolutely
100%.
false.
Wow.
And ridiculous, and there's claims in the hospitals where people have made those,
Wow.
and this has happened. So
100%.
it just, that it's transcended from just our black community over to other communities. Dominant culture, white folks believe the exact same thing, and so. Or maybe I shouldn't even say transcended. Maybe that belief has always been there. We just sort of adopted it
Yeah.
and,
survival.
and kept it going. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And I would say along the lines with the medical system, we even experience that today with Black infant mortality in the state of Oregon.
Yep.
Yep.
You know, in our hospital systems and how Black women even give birth. You know, I've done work with prenatal parents and, you know, young parenting mothers, and the things that these women go through in the hospital system is just, you would never probably experience that with a white mom.
Yep.
You know, and this
Yep.
idea of like, your pain isn't really being recognized,
Yep.
you know, or even if you're saying, hey, like, there's something wrong with my baby, like, I think that you need to, like, check this. It's like, oh, no, you know, like, oh, you know, that's fine. Or you just have postpartum depression and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, wait a minute. Can you at least reach out to my,
Yeah.
can you at least check? And then, you know, what happens, you know, we respond in a way
Yep.
that is, you know, boisterous
Yep.
sometimes
Yep.
and yelling and screaming like that.
Yep.
And then it's like, oh my gosh, you're being unsafe now. It's
Yep.
like, no, I'm here because you didn't hear me.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there's so many
Yeah.
so many facets of that.
Man, what just hit me was just like just hearing especially with Deshaun, what you were saying was just like black women, I don't want to always have to be strong.
Oh,
I
Right.
actually just want you to hear me.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like that just really just resonated with me, that it's like, okay, yeah, I may be in this hospital and I may carry a certain type of bone structure or bone density or whatever it is, and you just have this misnomer that, you know what I'm saying, that, oh, I can just take it, or oh, you'll just be all right. But I just want to be heard. I don't feel heard when I go to the hospital. I don't feel heard when I'm trying to advocate for my child at school. I don't feel heard even in the context of my intimate relationships, because I'm always considered to be the strong one.
Yeah.
And so, but I really just want to be heard.
Yep.
And so I think some of the things that we see within the context of our community is when we see, quote unquote, the stereotype of the angry black woman, I think some of that can be contributed to or attributed to just someone actually saying, actually, this is how I've experienced ways of being heard.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is
Nobody will listen until I act like this.
Until I act like this. Now I got your attention.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Because when I try to say, ouch, ooch, that hurts, or that bothers me, or that, nobody responds.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I haven't been used to being able to get responses when I've tried to communicate
Yeah.
in more subtle or quote unquote healthier ways.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to act like this, and whether it's however it plays out, at least I know that you heard me now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that's what I kind of like have just like seen and like was hearing from you guys. Like, man, that just hit me. Just like, actually, I just want to just be heard. You know, I don't
Yeah.
want
Absolutely.
that now.
Yeah. And this the responsibility that it holds of having that label of strong black woman, or the what people perceive you as, and then not having self-care.
Yeah.
That's what I think about when it
Oh.
comes to black
Yep.
therapy. It's like,
Yeah.
well, those are my issues or things that I have to deal with, but I have so many other responsibilities.
Yes.
I have to take care
Yep.
of this person and that person. They're depending
That-
on me.
that- yep.
At work,
Absolutely.
I'm doing all this work, and I'm, I have the brunt of this and the brunt of that. And then it's like, well, who has time
So like everywhere she
for
goes.
myself?
Everywhere
Yeah.
everywhere she goes, she
Absolutely.
caretakes.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know,
Wow.
because
Yeah.
even white people come to black women and have them assume that role of caretaking emotionally for
Yep.
them in the workspace.
Yep.
And that is something that the black woman has to call out in the
Yep.
workspace.
Yep.
And it shouldn't have to be her role to do that, but in order to have her own, like, I'm here to do my job. I'm not here to manage your emotions.
That's right.
Like,
That's
we
right.
have to do that so much.
Because if I came to the office hysterical, like you came to the office
Right.
hysterical, there would be a way different
Different
reaction.
response.
Okay, everybody wouldn't be
Absolutely.
comforting me.
No.
No.
Come on, let's go take a break. Let's go take a
No, there's a
walk.
fear.
Yeah, it'll be like, no, she's out of control. You
Right,
know?
absolutely, 100%.
Wow.
And so if I'm always taking care of the emotions of other people, constantly not heard, in the workspace and social environments and at home, how then do I learn to build a healthy relationship with my spouse?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
and then on the male side of it, you know, you're also not really hurt, but you're also kind of expected to be in a different box
Yep. Yeah.
where what is hurt is your anger.
That's right.
Yep.
You know,
That's
your
right.
frustration is hurt, and that's what is expected of you.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And
That's right.
you know, there's kind of this invisibleness to you as a black man. Like you kind of don't matter in this space. You're the other.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so then you carry that.
Yep.
Then you come home.
Yep.
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 And I will speak to that as far as like, especially when you talked about the context of like, you know, white people just want like black women to like, you know, either help carry or soothe their like
Oh my
emotions
gosh,
and
yes.
different things of that nature. Like, and they caretakers of everywhere they go. I've seen a system that's even been developed to where we talk about the invisibility of the black male, like especially like when it comes down to our children and navigating school systems,
Yep.
they only or navigating assistance only deal with mothers. It's designed to only
Yeah.
deal with the mothers,
Yep.
and it further perpetuates that a father's either opinion or presence is not only not needed but not even warranted,
Yep.
or not even wanted.
Yep.
And
Yep.
out of what I've seen from the black males to switch over with you is that we've adopted that as well to a point of sometimes where it's just like we internally I felt invisible. I don't really feel like I'm needed or warranted, so it just doesn't really matter if I'm here or not.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
That didn't happen by accident. That was systemic.
Yep.
That
Yep.
was a systemic system. It was institutional. Services were not offered because, mind you, because of coming out of the slave system in this country, we were primed for poverty
Right.
because we had no social capital.
That's
We
right.
had no like financial
That's right.
capital, no financial bearings, and so we had to build from the ground up, but constantly having things ripped from under us.
Yep.
And so it was very systemic with, okay, we're going to offer you assistance, but not if you have a father present in the home.
Yep.
Or not if you even have a father that we think might be present.
present.
And even if
Yep.
it's not the biological father, a father figure.
Yep.
And so
Wow.
these
Yep.
things were very systemic, they were
Yep.
very targeted.
Yep.
To the highest levels in our country. The FBI targeted black families,
Yep.
you know, and taking fathers out of homes, you know. And so we have to recognize that these things did not happen by accident, and that is why the experience of black families, black American families, looks very different than the experience of families of black families in other countries.
Wow.
And so it's very systemic, and so it has continued to follow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because these systems of welfare weren't really established to support black families in coming together.
Nope.
However, they
They
were
were gonna go after the
established.
dad.
Right. However, they were established to support black women.
Financially.
Yep.
You know, and then
Yep.
yeah, and when you think about the dad, like you said,
Yeah.
going after the dad.
Yep.
If I can tear dads out of homes,
Yep.
how stable does that make the family system?
Wow. And I yes, man, like that's really hit. I mean, it's making my mind just like really go because there is a major difference between the American black males and then the ones who and family between those who immigrate over here, whether it be
Oh, yeah.
Ethiopian
Oh,
or
yeah.
African.
100%.
Oh,
He
yeah.
is
That's a
present.
different culture.
He is there. I know, but even if they've been in here for like
Second-
a decade, or
second-
even if
second
they're
or third
second
generation.
and third
Yeah.
generation,
Immigrants.
he's there. He is present. You have to acknowledge his presence.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? There are things that dad is asked to sign off for. Like
Yeah.
he's front and center. You know what I'm saying? And people
Yeah.
who offer services to those communities, they know beforehand. If we don't want any issues, we have to either acknowledge or at
Yeah.
least talk to
Yeah.
the father.
Yeah.
But that is definitely a lot differently sometimes in some of our more those who are
Who are
for
born
lack
in
of
the
a better word,
United States.
Americanized.
Right.
Yeah, I would
Right.
just
Right.
say the United States.
The
Because
United
in
States.
Canada, it looks different.
Right.
And in Mexico, you know, that's a whole different culture.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
definitely specific to the United States.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and when we talk about this like American type of a system. And I think also what I see with people from the African, who are African immigrants, you know, and who are honestly African American, and I think that that's also a difference that we have to recognize. Is that African American, like I can't say that I'm African
I
American,
hear
even
you.
though society identifies me as that, because
Right.
I don't have a root in Africa that I'm aware of and can identify with. Like, oh, I come from there.
Right.
My people are
Right.
there.
Right.
I have family that is
Right.
there, has been there, or that's still, that I'm still connected to.
Right.
So this idea of the Black American experience, it looks very different.
Yeah.
And still, even in social services, like you were talking about, even in some of those situations where we have to talk to dad, or where they're saying, okay, we have to talk to dad in order to get in. What I've seen is that it's often seen as like he's controlling.
Yep.
Dad might
It
be
gets
abusing
labeled.
mom.
Right.
Dad might be abusing mom, and how did you get dad to talk to you? And I'm just
Right.
like, God, what do you
Just
mean?
had a regular
I just
conversation.
acknowledge them.
Like, how are you doing? It is just, it boggles my mind. I mean, and I think maybe you can speak to that too.
No, definitely, and I think it just continues to perpetuate this idea that black men are invisible when you don't have these systems where black folks or black men aren't being acknowledged, and what that does to a psyche of a black man, that tears us down. When and it's very interesting how people can look at you and say they acknowledge you, but they're actually looking past you. They're not looking at you. You don't feel that they look at you. You don't feel that they see you. They're looking directly past you, and we pick those things up as black men or just black people in general. Just given how our radars are always
Relational.
up because of our passed down trauma. And that's a whole other different topic.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
And and with DHS Child Welfare, I've seen a lot of that where the dad is like, look, you guys don't listen. I'm not doing none of this stuff that you're asking me to do. It doesn't matter.
Right.
You did this to my cousin, or you did this to my other child, and they just like, I'm not engaging. Like, period.
Yep.
At
I'm not
all. Like,
engaged.
I don't trust you guys. It doesn't matter what we do. You have me go through these hoops. It doesn't matter. I'm not doing it.
Yep.
They feel like they're not heard.
Right.
And they're not respected, or they're not included.
And there's a total mistrust of the system.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And rightfully so.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We should be scrutinizing all of the systems because of what our history has shown us and what we have experienced. And so because of that distrust, of course, it's going to be hard to get somebody to comply or want to do things that you're asking. And if you come with the goodness of your heart, you represent the system.
Wow.
And that was one of
Yep.
the things that I had to really engage with or understand when I was working for, I won't say what county, but working for the counties or agencies. You go into someone's home, they're looking at you up and down. You can even be black, and they look at you because they're not seeing you as somebody that is. They represent the system.
Right.
Is what when folks look at me, that's what they're saying, and so I have to work additionally hard to build relationship, and I think that's what a large part of our systems are missing is that relational component, and sometimes we can come in so strong with. We believe what we know is right for you when you haven't even established a relationship. So why would I listen to you if I don't even know you like that?
Yeah.
It just makes common sense, and I appreciate what Fayana is saying about it first starts with relationship. It first starts with building that connection, building that strong rapport. And I believe that if these child welfare systems or whatever can really understand the importance of building relationships, I think they'll have a much more trusting connection, and people will be much more, I don't want to say compliant, but much more willing to work with whatever it is that they're bringing. You can be bringing in $1 million, but if I don't trust you,
It don't matter.
it don't matter, because I don't even know if you're gonna give me the $1 million.
Right.
Yeah. That's so true. That's so true. And so since you guys have been in practice, I know that you guys been in practice like different years. Like Deshaun, I think you've been in 10 years now or 15?
15 years.
Practice as a therapist, practice as a social worker.
See, it's all the same to me, so y'all gotta break it down
Oh
for us lay people. Okay?
So since 2006.
Okay.
So 15 years. I've been licensed to do clinical social work since 2011.
Okay.
But you've been helping people your whole life.
Been helping people my whole life.
It's not like you just started and you got your license. This is something that was in you.
Yeah, this is the Black experience. Oh my goodness.
How long for you?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I think I got licensed in 2018, 2017.
Okay.
Can't remember because I graduated in 2015.
Oh wow.
So then
Okay.
I got my license like 2017 then, because I got it fairly quickly. I was working on.
You were
even
much
in
more
grad
on
school.
track than me.
I was like, boom. I need to get it done. 'Cause I cannot continue to not have these voices heard and not see
Right.
these
Yeah.
people like
Exactly.
served well.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I had been a social worker for years before that.
Yeah.
You know, like right out of high school, kind of went straight into school, child and family studies, all of that. So I was already social working right out of like since 2005.
Yeah. And so since you guys have been in practice or had your license or whatnot, like, what are the major changes or developments that you guys have seen in the Black community when it comes to mental health?
You know, it's really interesting. Sorry, I'll answer part of this.
Yeah.
Tag
I'm still
along.
trying to think. Yeah.
But I think what I'm very hopeful of right now is a lot of Black men are coming to therapy for the first
Come on, man.
time.
Wow, yeah.
It is like,
Yes.
it's amazing, it's
Beautiful.
refreshing. I'm seeing more Black men. How many times, have you been in therapy before? Nuh-uh, this is my first time. What? Okay, so let me walk you through this process. I mean,
What this looks
over
like,
and over and
Yeah.
over again, I've seen that shift. And I really think a lot of it has to do with there's just more representation. And people are breaking the silence and they're coming out, and social media I think plays a huge role.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And sort of breaking that silence. But I think also because of this pandemic,
Yep.
it's COVID has been rough and shutdowns have been rough. And I think because things have had to slow completely down, people have had to take some time to really be internal with themselves, and they're recognizing that, man, I got some stuff that I need to work on, and so they're reaching out, and I'm seeing it over and over again, and I'm so grateful for that. I think the challenging part with that is that we just need to have more providers,
Right.
because honestly speaking, if every Black person decided that they wanted to go to therapy at any given moment, we don't have the providers in place to be able to serve them,
Wow.
which is super heartbreaking and really difficult and actually humbling,
Yeah.
and so, I don't know, it ain't time for a plug, but I'm just gonna put this plug in there.
Put it in.
If you are somebody who are, if you just have a heart to serve, a heart to give, if you have a heart to want to help people, going into counseling is an excellent place to be able to go into
Facts.
and try out and do, because not only do people need you, but it's also healing and helpful for yourself. You spend more time really working on yourself in school and classes, and when you graduate, you can be out there to help somebody else. And so I just really want to encourage, if you're a young person that's trying to figure out what direction you want to move into, you like helping people, you like psychology, try it out, go for it, because this field in this particular state, now I can't talk about Washington, I can't talk about California, I can't talk about New York, but in this state, you're needed.
Yeah.
You are needed.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's dope. And as we talked about earlier too, you said that it's also more of a flexible degree. There's so many different ways and nuances that you can serve.
Absolutely.
With that degree, and so many different
Absolutely.
fields. Because like you said, every field needs a social worker.
Every
There are people.
Every
Yes.
field, wherever there's people, social workers are going to be needed, even in non-traditional settings.
Yep.
So
Wherever socialization is happening.
there you go. There you go. There you go. So you can even make a position happen in these various corporate companies, because they've got issues, because there's people there, and so anyway. That's it for my plug.
No, shame it. You need that.
Especially Black men.
Yep.
Black men. I want to just say that.
Yes.
Black men.
Yes.
Don't be afraid of counseling. Don't be afraid of social work. Social work is not a woman's degree. It's at everybody's degree, first of all, but in particularly Black men, you are needed. I can probably count on my hand, maybe both hands, of how many black male-identified clinicians there are working, and this might be generous. So you are definitely needed. You will be a big fish in a small pond.
Definitely. And I think what I would add to that is make sure that when you come in, that you have someone that you can trust and mentor you through the process, even just by reaching out to people who are already doing the work.
Yeah.
Because, I think that there are some, things along the way that might happen.
Yep.
And you just need that support, especially as a black male in these spaces.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because it's there's a lot of white perspective. There's a
100%.
lot
White
predominant
women
culture, white women perspective, and you as a black man can get lost in that, and
Yes.
Wow.
and so, or you as a black person can get lost in it, and so, to Fayana's point, it is good to find people who are doing this work that are black that can help offer that perspective.
Yes.
That you necessarily won't get in the school setting.
Wow. So speak to that. Like how would someone go about that? Like if they're thinking like, okay, this is the field I want to go in, but how do like I don't even know how to search for people.
Where
who
do I
look
start?
Yeah, to get that
Yeah.
context as far as like for people who like look like me, or if I'm thinking about if I'm a young person, I'm like a junior, senior in high school, or first year in college, and like if I'm seeing this, like how would I go about finding a Deshaun and Fayana? Like how would I, or people to because I also want you to know like the importance of it as well. If you guys could speak to that, like when you say, oh, there's a lot of white perspective or predominantly white, perspectives or whatnot. How do you, I don't know if the right word is counter or have an additional education
Yeah, 'cause it
to
is a
help
different
counter those
way.
narratives.
It is a code switch, definitely. I think it's looking at the end goal. Like if your goal is to be an LPC or an LCSW, whatever it is, like or just a therapist in general or a counselor in general, searching those terms and finding people's profile or people's picture on the internet and reach out to them via an email. Say, hey, like this is what I'm trying to do. This is where I am in the process. And a lot of times, even though like we are strapped as clinicians, even if we're not able to kind of do that for you at that time, we can at least point you in the direction, and because we recognize that, where we are, it has definitely not been without some fervence and some fight.
That's right. That's right.
And just kind of even sometimes the support we wish we would have had, going through our school systems and our internships and all of that, and getting our hours and all of that.
Yeah.
So definitely, we know that it's needed and it needs to grow. Like we don't have a, what do you call it? Like a monopoly on this field. Like
Right.
we definitely recognize that there are more needed. Absolutely, 100%.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
Well,
Like, we need more help.
Yeah.
Like, I can't. Sometimes it's like, oh, I'm the only black person at my job. So, like they have to come to me for everything that has to do with clients
Yeah.
when they have specific issues or whatever. It's like, gosh, we need more people in social work and in therapy.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's dope.
Yeah.
And so one of the ways that I heard you say was talking about, what is an LPC or what is an MSW? So like researching those things and then like figuring out like, okay, are there people who look like me who are in those fields and then trying to find ways to connect with them, whether it's via like social media or email or, you know what I'm saying? Like I just want to do a little
Black
Facebook chat.
therapist in Oregon.
Yeah.
Portland.
Yeah.
And these terminologies that we're sort of throwing around, LCSW is licensed clinical social worker.
Thank you.
LPC is licensed professional counselor. And then LMFT is licensed marriage and family therapist. And so all three of those fields, they're all are clinical counselors who can do this work. And so if you want to go up higher, you can go get your PsyD. And, nobody's stopping you. That's
What's that?
doctorate of psychology.
Oh, doctor.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, clinical psychology. Doctor is clinical psychology. If you wanted to go that route. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe we can speak a little bit about like how do we pay for therapy? How do we, especially someone who's maybe younger and they're like, well, how can I be able to afford that? What are ways that people are able to afford therapy?
Yes.
Yeah, great question. I definitely will say, if you are employed, then it's a good idea to check with your human resources department to see what insurance company you're on and what that insurance company is offering. Most companies will offer counseling. Most companies that have employees will have what's called EAP, which stands for Employment Assistance Program. They'll give you up to, I think, 6 sessions for free. So it's good to ask your insurance company, do I have an EAP, or your employer, and then you can find a therapist that accepts your EAP. And then once you do that, then you can get into counseling with, you don't have to pay anything because it's part of your benefits.
Right.
Once those 6 sessions are up, you can, depending on if that therapist accepts your insurance, then you can just transfer your insurance right over to that therapist and keep that same therapist. If you're paying out of pocket, one of the questions to ask the therapist is, do they accept a sliding fee scale? And basically that sliding fee scale is saying that your payment for therapy services is based on your income or household. And oftentimes, I know as social workers, we have part of our code of ethics is to be able to provide service to people that can't afford it. And so oftentimes we'll make ways to figure out how to get you in to provide therapy. Especially, we can't deny you because there's a need there. We also have to be able to serve you or get you to connected to somebody that can. You know, and so we'll never leave you hanging. We'll find you, we'll get you connected. But that's sort of ways that you can pay for counseling.
I think the only thing I would add to that is like the different types of insurances. I think some people don't understand that OHP pays for therapy. They pay for individual therapy and they pay for family therapy. Right now they don't pay for couples therapy, but you know,
There's
get
ways
in the
to
door.
work around that.
Right.
So, but when you say family, that means if you are married, if you're not married, what is that? What's the difference?
Oh my gosh, it comes down to the assessment. I feel like that's what it comes down to.
How you do the assessment.
How you do the assessment, how you word it, and how you send the authorization to OHP. I'm not an OHP connoisseur, so to say. I also don't work for them. I work with them, but not for them. So yeah, I would just say talk to your therapist about that. And then with insurance, there are different co-pays, and so really trying to work to understand your insurance plan is going to be vital. And because of the Affordable Care Act, each insurance plan has to offer some form of mental health coverage.
Oh wow, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, that was passed down with the Affordable Care Act, oftentimes misnamed as Obamacare.
Yes.
Yeah.
So man, thank you guys for that. I think that before we get you guys out of here, there's a question that we had that was on here, and Deshaun hit it at the beginning, but I'm gonna circle back to it as a button up for us both. But like, because you know, I know we both are from the faith community as well, and so I really want to ask this because we also approached it in our first one. Was how do you reconcile spiritual counseling and psychological counseling, and what are the differences, and then also how are they related?
You go first.
Because like he was talking about earlier, like, you know, because it's not, because like Deshaun said earlier about this, it's like subbing and being just like, you know what, forget counseling, I'm just going to my pastor, that's all I need.
Yeah. I get it. I think there's this recognition that there's a power that exists outside of you, and you would like to engage in that power as part of your healing process. And there's research that has shown that people who have a spiritual connection or a spiritual practice, it definitely supports their ability to heal. And so I think recognizing that to be a fact is very helpful. Like, it has been researched as a scientific fact that people who have a spiritual connection and a spiritual practice, that is considered to be a strength and a positive coping skill. Granted, there are some things that kind of happen in those systems that we need to heal from at times, but in general, if someone is engaged or connected to a higher power practice. We really want to figure out how to help them see how to connect that with therapy, with a therapy practice. And so I think honoring the fact that your pastor has a position, or ministers, or, you know, if you have a rabbi, like whatever it is, like that person has a place in your life, and we're not trying to take that place. You know, what we're saying is they have their place and their role to play, and we've been to school and we research, and you know, we understand the mind and social environments in this particular way. And what are some ways that we can work with you? There are ways we can work with you that your spiritual person is not able to do for you, because their focus is on your spiritual practice and your spirituality, which is totally fine. Like we're not saying like don't do that. We're saying let's add. Let's add tools to your toolbox to fix different things.
Wow.
We're not. You can't just use one tool to build a house.
That's right.
Like it's just not possible.
That's right.
So go ahead and add us as a tool to utilize in your healing process. That is what we are here for. I think one of the major things that, you know, the Black community in this country is coming out of is this idea of Black people don't go to therapy; they go to church.
Right.
You know, and you hear it said. You know, you know, we've been in families where, you know, that is said, and I think that comes out of a protection, you know, like we have to protect our space, and we know what it has been like when people from other professions have come into our lives, and the misinformation and the misidentification that they have done to us as a people, and we don't want to go back there. And so that is valid, and recognizing that, and so supporting folks to understand the stigma that exists in their families, and also supporting them to understand how to have these conversations with different people in their family, and also helping them identify the people in their family that are not ready for them to have that conversation or broach that with. And so how you can work to protect your information and your emotional space so that you're not continuing to fight against your decision to engage in therapy. So I think that is also part of the work, you know, that we do, you know, in the practice space. And I think another thing that kind of helps with that is, even in my personal space, I talk about therapy, you know, and so just not using it as a taboo thing, but
Normalizing.
normalizing it and letting people know that it's a tool, and that it is okay, and it is definitely needed, just like, you know, your pastor is needed. Like, you're not just a one-track, you know, person. You have these many facets that make you up, and there are some things that it's important to talk about with an unbiased professional person.
Yeah, oftentimes I have some friends that would say like, oh, this is what I learned from my therapist. This is a resource that they send me, like, look at this, or you know what I mean? So it's becoming more acceptable, and like you're saying, like just talking about it, like, oh yeah, I talked to my therapist and it really helped me. Like being able to normalize it, and like it's okay. You know, it's a good thing. And because we're able to talk about it and share our experience, if you're comfortable, if you don't feel attacked at home, because some people are like, oh, that's what you're doing, or you telling them all your business or whatever. So you have to know when to say it and when not to say it. But for the most part, I find that now people are more open in talking about the good things about it.
Right.
And I would add on to what you all are saying here, and just really encouraging folks to not really see counseling as something that's a negative. Because you go to counseling doesn't make you less strong. I mean, you're still strong. You're not weak because you go to counseling, and it doesn't mean that God or whoever your higher power is less effective. It just means that you are a human being who are experiencing emotions or experiencing feelings, and you need to also connect to other people who can help you work through those emotions, who also are human beings. And who also can speak to the things that you need them to speak to. And so I find that a lot of people that are resistant to going to counseling, that are involved in some sort of church or a spiritual practice, mainly church. I would probably say I don't really find too many people that say, I have my own spiritual practice, I don't need counseling. It's mainly people. Sorry, I'm just going to put it out there.
That's true,
It's mainly folks that are in church, Black church, that say, you know, I'm not going to go to counseling, or, you know, counseling, you know, ain't nothing wrong with me, or whatever. But I would just say that there's nothing wrong with it. And on the flip side of that, if you are in the black church and you are experiencing some mental health stuff, it doesn't mean that you are less Christian or less of God's child, or that you are a demon, you know,
or you don't have faith,
or that you don't have faith. You know, I would say that it's you have faith, you have all those things. It's just that you're needing some additional support, as Fayana spoke about, and so I think that it's important, even if pastors are sort of listening to this or going to watch this. I think it's also important to know where your limits are as well. Like, you know,
say it again, man. Say it again,
I'm gonna make
man.
you say it.
Yeah, it's important to know where your limits are.
Yep.
And we went to school for a number of years to be able to do this. Pastors go to school for a number of years, or they're in practice for a number of years to do what they do.
Yep.
I would never speak to one of my clients on spiritual matters that are above me, you know, because I would direct them to their pastor.
Yep.
And I love pastors. I have a pastor, you know, I love him dearly, but you know, you can't be all things to all people. You have to know where your limits are, and and if we are not sharing to the parishioners that it's okay to go to counseling, then I think we're missing a whole slew of people that are suffering and are stuck in the church Sunday after Sunday, unhappy. You know, and it always surprises me when I hear, and it saddens me too, but when I also hear people, men of God or whatever in the church that die by suicide, kill themselves.
Yeah, man.
You know, and some of that just is being not okay with reaching out for help because you have been in this position of feeling like you need to be this person all the time. I'm telling you, reach out for help. There are people, there are counselors, there are Christian counselors out there who will combine both the faith part of you as well as the human side of you and pull those things together and help you make sense of this thing, that you don't have to sit and suffer through these things. Yes, the word of God is true. Yes, prayer works. Yes, but God also put these things here for us. To go to, you don't say that to the doctor. You don't go to you don't go to your pastor and go, you know what, pastor, I want you to open me up and do open heart surgery. No. Because they went to school for it. So it's the same thing. We're not doing open heart surgery, but we are doing open soul surgery. Where we're working on that soul and that emotional part of you.
Man, y'all, this was like really just excellent, man.
Yes.
I just really thank y'all for y'all time today and like really sliding by, man, and helping us through these topics of conversation. And so, I mean, did you guys want to just tell anybody like, you know, where they can find your practice at, or if people want to like reach out either via email or whatnot as well? We also will share the information attached to the video as well. But if you guys want to just let them know, you know, where they can find you at, if someone's just like, oh, I just want to connect or ask her a question, or ask him a question or whatnot, like,
Well, I mean, I think what also is important is that we also do speak, you know, speaking events and things like that. So if you would like to, you know, utilize our skills to come and speak to a group of people, we also do that because we recognize that that work is important as well. And so I know that we offer like different workshops and consultations and things like that. So please seek us out for those things as well. I am at anchorwithincounseling.com, standard spelling. And then you have
rapcounseling.com. Yep, www.rapcounseling.com. That's it. I don't email myself or look myself up. But you can find me at www.rapcounseling.com. If you are interested in having more questions, certainly feel free to email me. You can find me also on Psychology Today, where you can also find a lot of other therapists and black therapists.
Yes, you can.
And, you know, email me and I can even send you a list of Black therapists that Fayana and myself are both on, and it's all Black clinicians.
Wow.
And so with various practices and various insurances and that sort of, and so you can find somebody, I think the list is about 35 now of Black clinicians.
Wow.
So, from agency work to also private practice work.
Right.
Awesome.
Right.
Awesome.
And that's actually a very small number considering
Yes.
the need of people
Absolutely.
right now.
Absolutely.
As we talked
Yeah.
about earlier,
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a need.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
definitely a need. So, yeah.
So yeah, Black Therapy Part 2, Brittany and Joe, man, we love y'all, appreciate y'all.
Yes.
Send us off, baby.
Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and like our page and on Instagram. And this has been Black Therapy Part 2.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.